Hey, very good.
Good afternoon, Colin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Good. What's new in your world?
Oh, lots of work, lots of students. We're getting ready for the new semester in the fall. The summer session is pretty busy. Yeah, we're just trying to hold it together. We're excited that we do have all these students, and yeah, we're just trying to make it work.
Fantastic. Is
Never a
everybody
dull
back
moment.
in person now?
Actually, we're going to start back in person for the fall semester. The staff and faculty will start back on a flex schedule effective July the 7th. And then when the fall semester starts in August, everybody will be back on board. Yeah, we've been doing teleworking since the last March 16th, I think it was.
Yeah.
So we're making our transition
Sure, everybody
back.
is looking forward to being back to in person.
Yeah, to see folks we haven't seen in such a long time. So it's
Hmm.
bittersweet.
Yep.
Hey Colin, hey Vega.
How
Hi,
are you,
Jonathan. How are
Jonathan?
you?
I'm great. It's good to be with you all. How are things going?
Going pretty good. And you?
You know, I am a boy of summer, so I am loving this time of year, and you know, very hopeful that hopefully things will continue to get better with COVID. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
how about yourself?
Doing pretty good. I was just sharing with Colin how busy we were at the college with the new semester, and we're going to be back full force in August. Yeah, it's a pretty busy time, registration, and recent high school graduates coming in, and so just trying to get ready to receive all these great students.
Yeah, that is exciting. You know, new students at the starting a new chapter in their lives. Very.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then because of the pandemic, we've had a huge influx of folks who are unfortunately unemployed. And so they're doing some career changes. And so we've had a lot of folks coming in to do some short-term credential programs and or just wanting to market themselves to get ready for that career change. So we've gotten a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Wow. I'm curious, what programs has that picked up in? Has it been things like the trades or other types of work?
So typically our health and wellness cohorts are always popular. And especially with the pandemic, health and wellness has seen an uptick. We've had lots of folks coming in for business and entrepreneurship programs, as well as construction trades has really been booming. So I think those are just a few of the ones that are really getting a lot of folks interested in, and the registrations have increased. Of course, the curriculum side of our college, with, like we said, the high school students coming in or folks deciding they want to come back to school again. So I think both sides of the house, is the way I sort of put it, have been busy. Folks being able to get those credentials. I'll tell you another one that's pretty popular is in the sciences with the bio work
Mhm.
and even technology. So those are really popular for us.
Wow, that's so exciting.
It is. And we're excited that we're able to support and help those individuals. Got a lot of grant dollars coming in to the college. And so that's really helpful. Trying to remove those barriers is important. So we're appreciative of all the support that we get from our partners in the community. We couldn't make it without those folks.
Yeah, partnerships are so important. I feel the same way in my own work. Without those, we wouldn't be nearly as successful. So that's just so exciting.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Chatterjee's gonna be fussing, but it's like she can't fuss at me any more than I'm.
Hello, 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 everybody. Good afternoon. Looks like we got a slow trickle of folks coming in. Give it another minute or two. I see Colin. Hi. Is Ruby there under community development? Hey, Lloyd. Cool beans. We give it another minute or two. I'm trying to see. We don't have anything to vote on, so I make sure we don't need to have a quorum. Alrighty.
Madam Chair, we do need a vote. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lloyd. We do need a vote on the priority for COC funding.
Okay.
We'll need a
Thank
quorum
you.
for that vote at least.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alrighty. All right, I'm just seeing who have logged in. So I just want to check. We're just trying to make sure we have a quorum of our HSAC committee members. I see that someone dialed in. The last 3 digits of your phone number is 739. Good afternoon. Are you a HSAC member or a member of the COC?
That's Drew Cummings.
Drew. Okay. All right, that's helpful. Thank you. All right. Ruby, I see that we have 25 dialed in now. Can you give me idea if we have our quorum? 26. All right. And Colleen, I see your comment that you're gonna have to dial in a 257 number. Okay. At the end. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, all. I know that folks are still kind of trickling in. I will check one more time with Ruby to make sure we have a quorum before we get to our voting item later on in the agenda. But let's go ahead and call our June 23rd, 2021 meeting to order. Happy Wednesday to all. I will start off our meeting by reminding us all of the goals that we are working on. So to start things off, finish the job of ending chronic homelessness, prevent and end veterans homelessness, prevent and end homelessness for families, youth, and children. And then lastly, set a path to ending all types of homelessness. So next on our agenda is to look over our April minutes. Our April minutes were sent out earlier today, I believe. So let me pause here to give you guys a chance to review, and let me know if there needs to be any changes. Okay, not hearing any changes needed for the April minutes. I will entertain a motion to accept minutes as presented.
So moved. It's Angelo Birch.
Madam Chair, I believe without a quorum, you cannot approve minutes. Is that
Oh,
correct?
we don't have a quorum?
I don't have it
I'm
yet.
not sure.
Oh.
I don't know.
Let me see. I have 29. Let's see. I'm not sure all the 29 are us though. Let me see. Oh, I still got people signing in. Okay, just bear with us a little bit. My boxes keep moving as I'm counting, folks. Okay. $32.
How many do we need for a quorum, Madam Chair?
So I believe, is it half plus one?
Yes, it is half plus one.
Okay. All right, we should be good to go. Yeah, we have more than 12 folks from HSAC, so we should be good. Thank you, Ruby. I got your message. All right, so let me step backwards just a little bit. So we were reviewing the minutes for April. So it does look like we have a quorum now. Thank you, Lloyd, for that reminder. I believe that there was a motion on the floor by Dr. Birch. Thank you. I will entertain a second for that motion.
Second, this is Colleen Herbert.
Thank you, Colleen. All right. So now I believe I need to do a vote to accept these minutes. So I will entertain a vote on the floor for accepting the minutes as yes.
You want a voice vote or you want it in chat?
If you can do it in your chat for me, please. Thank you, Dr. Birch.
Do we have a sign-in sheet, Madam Chair?
We do. Ruby is going to put that in the chat for us in just a few minutes. Thank you. All right, there's a vote on the floor to accept the April minutes, and you can put your vote in the chat here. Thank you.
Drew votes yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Drew. All right, so we will approve those minutes. Thank you. Let me stop here to see if we have a public comment. Did community development get anything or anybody for public comment? I'm not aware of any. Okay. All right. So moving right along, our approval of CLC competition priorities. We're going to hear from our community development staff. The background to this is the HSAC will be asked to approve priorities for the CLC competition based on the Policy and Planning Committee's recommendations. The Policy and Planning Committee is recommending that dedicated plus units of permanent supportive housing be the priority for use of any bonus funds available for 2021 CLC homeless grants competition. Colin, let me punt it back to you. I think I had you on the agenda for Policy and Planning Committee quarterly update. So if you can give us your update, and that will lead us into this next discussion and voting.
Sure. I am filling in for Sharita as she is at a conference this week and just passing along her report for policy and planning, for the Policy and Planning Committee update, and what has been worked on in the last 3 months and a few things that have gone back a little further than that. So one of them is the dedicated plus funding priority, and a recommendation will be coming to you shortly about that from Lloyd. The gaps analysis subcommittee has been working incredibly diligently through the gaps analysis to find equity with an equity lens, and is asking for a little additional time to continue the work that is going on due to staffing challenges, as we're using unpaid interns who have limited time, and others in the HSAC and part of committee members and part of COC members to do client interviews and interviews with other service providers and interested parties. So hopefully HSAC will be okay granting an extension of time to complete this valuable work. There's a coordinated entry subcommittee that's been working on revamping our prioritization for coordinated entry and looking at new projects that have been piloted to move people more quickly into rapid rehousing. The group most recently explored the equity lens of prioritization using the VI SPDAT, as the VI SPDAT has some inherent racial biases. And Hanalea's work sort of determined that there was an average of about a 3-point difference between the Black African-American people entering permanent supportive housing and white counterparts. And the committee recently voted that they would sort of add a weighted scale as a temporary fix while the committee is looking for a better evaluation method to determine how to get people placed into appropriate housing, as the VI SPDAT is not equitable. And the community development team is also looking at, thank you, Hanalea, sorry, I misspoke. The average is a 1-point disparity for people with 3 or more disabilities. The average is,
Maybe I can help here.
yeah, go ahead and explain it, Hanalea, sorry.
No worries, you weren't in the meeting. So the average disparity, just for the general population between Black or African American clients and their white counterparts is 1 point. For clients specifically who have 3 or more disabilities, that racial disparity expands to 3 points.
And the community development department, as well as 2 others, are taking part in a HUD-sponsored technical assistance project, which is a learning collaborative on coordinated entry. So hopefully that will bring new information into the group to help sort some of these challenges out. There will be, this is more of a heads up, the Policy and Planning Committee is exploring bringing a request to the HSAC for a recommendation of setting aside some of the 300 and 500 block housing that is being built by the county to be set aside for people experiencing homelessness. And that will be coming sometime in the near future as we drill down into what the specific request would be. We're looking at the return to pre-COVID and discussing what needs to be done in order to get back to pre-sheltering guidelines. What is the information that we need? What would those triggering events be? And what may need to be requested from the city or county at a later date as we move through that process. Then just transitions and vacant seats. We do have some vacancies that are coming up, and working with the HSAC to replace and fill seats and hopefully get more HSAC members to join the committee so more COC people can join the committee as well. So that's where we are at this point. Just a few things that have been worked on in the last quarter.
Thank you for that report for policy and planning, and thank you for that clarifying information, Hanalea. So that brings us into the approval part of it. Thank you for giving us that background. The approval of the COC competition priorities. So can someone from community development kind of help us kind of articulate what we're voting on?
Okay.
Clarity on that.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair, HSAC members, COC members, and guests. Lloyd Schmeidler from Community Development. The annual competition for continuum of care funds generally includes a portion of funds for what's called a permanent housing bonus. And the COC board has been responsible for prioritizing projects to use those funds for permanent housing. Generally, the options have been to use it either for some kind of permanent supportive housing or to use it for rapid rehousing. Those are the two basic project types that can be funded with the continuum of care funds. Under the permanent supportive housing category, for about the last 7 or 8 years, HUD has informed continuums of care across the country that permanent supportive housing should be dedicated. Initially, it was dedicated to people who are chronically homeless. In 2017, in that year's competition, HUD broadened the idea of dedicated beds slightly to a new category called Dedicated Plus. And Dedicated Plus beds are permanent supportive housing beds that can be used for chronically homeless people or for people who, except for a technicality, would be chronically homeless. And essentially, the two categories in particular of people that would be eligible for a dedicated plus bed in Durham would be people that that have a year or more of homelessness within the last 3 period, but that year-long episode is not continuous, and it might be in less than 4 episodes of homelessness. So the definition of chronic homelessness gets to be pretty technical at times. So if the basic definition is that one has to be have a disability, and that would continue to be true with dedicated plus beds. The length of time homeless, according to the strict chronic homeless definition, has to be either continuously homeless for a year or longer, or 4 or more episodes of homelessness totaling cumulatively a year. A dedicated plus bed would allow a person who has a year or more of homelessness, but for example, in only 2 episodes of homelessness, to still be eligible for that bed. Also, another distinction would be that people who had been chronically homeless and had been in permanent supportive housing recently, but for whatever reason lost their permanent housing, could return to a dedicated plus bed without reestablishing that they are currently chronically homeless. So that would allow us to serve people who have had some extensive experiences of homelessness, but that's been in the past, and maybe for whatever reason they lost their permanent housing. We wouldn't need to work with them to reestablish chronic homelessness before we work to get them into a dedicated permanent supportive housing bed again. So those are the basic ideas of dedicated plus. With the agenda document in the minutes, we did include a brief document from HUD from, I think, the 2018 competition in which it reviewed the distinctions between dedicated beds and dedicated plus beds. And we anticipate that HUD will continue to use that distinction in the 2021 competition. So the recommendation from policy and planning is not only that that permanent supportive housing be the priority as opposed to rapid rehousing, but that projects that use permanent supportive housing for dedicated plus people would be the priority.
All right, thank you for that additional information. Before I entertain a motion for voting and approval, let me just stop here to see if folks have any questions, need to clarify anything before we proceed with the next step. If there are any questions for Lloyd or community development.
This is Jonathan Crooms from Durham County Veterans Services. Just to clarify, it sounds like the priority is for projects who will be housed providing dedicated beds or dedicated.
Muffled, Jonathan.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, while we're waiting on Mr. Crooms to chat his question, sorry about that, Jonathan. I do see a question from Ms. Gardner. Can COC organizational members ask questions? Oh yeah, I'll open up the floor for you guys. Yeah.
Thank you. With this change, does the binding list prioritization process change in any way for the permanent supportive housing projects that will be dedicated plus?
I'm going to refer that question to Hanalea Hoberman, since she's been managing those prioritization processes. Hanalea, do you want to respond to that, please?
While I want to first clarify, this will have no change for existing projects. We are requesting and recommending that all existing renewal projects do change their applications this year to indicate dedicated plus, but this is only for bonus projects. And the only change this will have in the priority is that we will have more clients who will be eligible for permanent supportive housing, but it won't change the rank order within that.
Thank you for that, Hanalea. All right, Lloyd, do you see Jonathan's comment? If not, I know you're on your treadmill. I'm not clear on how this is different from past priorities.
I can explain it.
Thank you.
essentially, one of the biggest challenges to proving chronicity is documenting length of time homelessness, which is 12 months of consecutive homelessness, or 4 episodes of homelessness in 3 years, totaling 12 months, and having a disabling condition. Oftentimes, we have people with a disabling condition, but they don't have 12 months of chronic homeless documentation. The dedicated plus would allow us to take somebody with a disability, for instance, who has been homeless for 6 months into a permanent supportive housing bed if they're at the top of the prioritization list. However, currently, the way things are set up, that person would not be able to access any of our current permanent supportive housing beds until they have 12 months of homelessness. Does that make sense? So this sort of allows us some flexibility that if a bed becomes available and we don't have somebody at the top of the list who meets the chronic homeless definition, but we have somebody who meets the disability piece, perhaps, they would be able to move into that unit. So it gives us some flexibility so that person doesn't have to remain homeless for an additional 6 months or other length of time to essentially time into chronicity.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions or need anything else clarified? Okay, so at this time, I will entertain a motion to proceed with voting yes to approve the policy and planning's recommendations. I'll stop there.
Yes, for Drew.
All right, thank you. I think I heard from Drew. All right, so the vote on the floor is to accept the recommendation from Policy and Planning Committee that the dedicated plus units of the permanent supportive housing be a priority for the use of any bonus funds available in 2021. So if you can use your chat boxes to put in your vote for yes to approve that recommendation, or nay, or if you abstain. And you can put that in the chat for me, please. All right, thank you for your vote. We have approved the recommendation from Policy and Planning recommendation to include the dedicated plus units for our permanent supportive housing for 2021. Thank you for your votes. All right, so moving right along on our agenda, we wanted to discuss this again. We mentioned it briefly in June, but I know that some trainings were moved around due to the community's participation in Juneteenth. So I'm glad that we were able to get that back on the agenda for this month. So Lloyd, you have some information to share with us on shared housing.
Good afternoon again. Yes, got a brief presentation. I hope to be able to share my screen. Are you seeing my screen with a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Very good. That's progress. Now, let me see if I can get it to slide share mode. There we go. Okay. So primarily let me see if this moves. There we go. The agenda here is very brief. I have about 6 or 7 slides. First, to again invite everyone on participating in this meeting, HSAC and non-HSAC members, to participate in a presentation about shared housing on July 9th. We'll talk a little bit about shared housing as permanent housing, the benefits of shared housing, emphasize that shared housing works for all populations of people experiencing homelessness, and that it is becoming a norm in many housing markets. So the invitation is that we have rescheduled our monthly effective case management series, which was originally scheduled for June 18th, rescheduled it to Friday, July 9th at 10 a.m. Our presenter is going to be Dr. Jamie Taylor. She is the founding director of the Shared Housing Institute, working nationally to bring shared housing to scale in cities and states and across the country. And you can learn more about her at sharedhousinginstitute.com. The people are invited to register at this link. We'll be sending this PowerPoint out by the end of the week to all of the HSAC members, as well as the participants, or to the COC, I believe. And you can click on Shared Housing Workshop and register. Ms. Taylor is very interested in helping Durham not work kind of piecemeal to implement shared housing, that is kind of project by project, but she is interested in helping us understand why we need a system-wide commitment to effectively implement shared housing. And she's going to be talking about that in the workshop after a longer explanation of shared housing than I'm providing here. I think she's going to be talking for about an hour of our hour-and-a-half session, and then we'll allow for Q&A and some opportunities to perhaps look at what are next steps for our COC to really develop a system-wide commitment to implement shared housing. So by way of kind of reminder for those who may be new to the whole idea of shared housing, what we're talking about is shared housing as permanent housing when 2 or more unrelated tenants have their own bedroom but share common living space. They might share a kitchen, a living room area, laundry area. Some may share a bathroom. It kind of depends on the units that they are renting. But each tenant has their own lease for the shared housing space, and each tenant may stay or leave the shared housing unit at any time. So people have independent leases and to make decisions independently to stay and leave. Obviously, if there are two tenants renting a 2-bedroom unit, for example, and one tenant leaves, then the project, for example, a permanent supportive housing project, would need to be working to identify another tenant to take the tenant's place who left, so that the rent can continue to be paid and the occupation of that unit continues to be viable for the person who remains. So some benefits about shared housing that I think Ms. Taylor will explore more deeply with us. These are just 6 of them that can seem rather obvious. We could go into greater discussion of them, but obviously if we expand the supply of housing units, we've been hearing continuously for some time that affordable housing is in short supply in Durham. And if we can expand the supply of units, we can help move people into housing sooner because they are paying lower rents, sharing the cost of a housing unit, so they can oftentimes rent a 2-bedroom unit. If a 2-bedroom unit is renting for example, $1,000, but a 1-bedroom unit is costing $700, 2 people renting the 2-bedroom unit would each be paying $500 in rent rather than the $700 for the 1-bedroom unit. And along with that, there's obviously less stress on people's budgets. There's more choice in neighborhoods with a roommate. And one of the things oftentimes I've experienced in my work with people experiencing homelessness is that they are connected to their friends in the homeless community sometimes, or might be in an encampment where they say, if I leave the encampment, I no longer can experience fellowship with the people I'm currently really living with. And on some level, an encampment is somewhat an experience of shared housing in some way. At least people are sharing some things there together, right? And a shared housing experience can increase self-efficacy, where people feel more positive about their living situation, feel more positive about themselves and their own decision-making processes. So shared housing has a lot of benefits, and a lot of people communities are experiencing a lot of success with it. And I'll share briefly about that. Mention that shared housing. Yes, ma'am.
Your slides aren't advancing. We're still, what I can see is still the first slide.
Well, I don't know about that. On my screen, it's advancing. So
Okay.
Okay, let me let's see. I appreciate you bringing that to my attention.
Yes, I can
Better?
see different slides. Yes.
Okay, for some reason it was sharing was
moving.
paused. All right. So I'll be sending this out. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through these slides again. This is the link to register for the workshop, and we want to invite everybody to sign up for the workshop as your schedule allows. It will be recorded as we have been doing, and it will be available for viewing later. This definition of kind of what shared housing is perhaps one of the most important slides in terms of talking specifically about shared housing. Some of the benefits outlined. Shared housing works for all kinds of people experiencing homelessness. It primarily is being used for unaccompanied adults, but you can imagine a perhaps small families, perhaps single moms with children or single dads with children, sharing living space. In Durham right now, there is co-housing communities. There's co-housing going on Hunt Street, I think just around the corner from the community development offices and right in the downtown area. So there's a lot of different models. People are sharing housing in different ways. And there are challenges certainly with making shared housing work for people experiencing homelessness, but it is working in many communities. Now getting my show to slides to move on. The technology sometimes doesn't want to do what we want it to do. Now we went back to the beginning. There we go. So shared housing is a norm, according to Ms. Taylor, across all moderate and high cost housing markets. The Durham housing market is somewhere between probably moderate and high cost certainly for North Carolina, maybe not high cost compared to San Francisco or New York City or Washington, D.C., but nevertheless, we in community development believe that now is the time to make shared housing a norm for our efforts to prevent and end homelessness in our COC. And so again, the invitation is to register at Shared Housing Workshop for the July 9th workshop with Ms. Taylor to learn more, as well as to explore what it would mean for us as a COC to implement shared housing approaches throughout our homeless housing system. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lloyd. Let me see if that generated, let me go to my chat box. Any questions, comments from others on the HSAC board or COC members?
This is Tracy with Alliance Health. I think this is great that we'll talk about this. I know this has come up over the years that I've been involved with the COC. I'm just wondering, does Dr. Taylor have examples of ways in which individuals who may not be family members, how they're paired with one another to make sure there's some compatibility with shared housing?
Yeah, that is obviously a key part of implementing shared housing is the roommate matching. And one of the most important things is that the roommate matching needs to be completely voluntary on the part of the people entering into a shared housing situation. And there are questionnaires and tools that Ms. Taylor and her organization and others have developed to help communities with that roommate matching process, and those would be shared with us when we make a commitment to work with the Shared Housing Institute, or if we make a commitment to work with them.
I think I'm gonna read Ricky's to you, Lloyd. Have
Okay.
local landlords working with the COC been invited to attend the July 9th presentation?
We have not extended that invitation, but we I think extended the invitation to the COC membership, and COC members are certainly welcome to forward that invitation to landlords that their projects are working with, and we would welcome them.
Thank you for that question. I will do that.
Good question. We do know there is some shared housing work going on in Durham in some of the COC projects. I don't know if anyone on the call wants to share anything briefly about their experience, but there is some, and obviously Ms. Taylor and we at the department are interested in taking it to scale and doing it across the system.
Lloyd, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, Drew.
This is Drew. I've
Good
switched
afternoon.
from my telephone back to my computer. I got home, but I wanted to kind of note that Spencer Bradford at DCIA and others have also kind of worked on this concept with regard to private homeowners, right? There are a lot of
Correct.
private homeowners who have a huge amount of house for, one or maybe two people, and might, with appropriate support and with sort of appropriate matching functions, as was mentioned earlier, might actually be perfectly happy to have one or two, housemates or
Sure.
folks to share their house who can pay a little bit, but not enough for, their own apartment in this real estate economy.
Absolutely. Yes.
And there might be a way to kind of piggyback the concepts if we were trying to get this going kind of on a community-wide basis, sort of a matching function. There might be a variety of kinds of hosts, right? Just a thought.
Correct, yes. Now, I see Colin put a question in the chat. If we approve a system-wide commitment to implementing shared housing, are we committing ourselves to working with the Shared Housing Institute? And that's a separate process that would, I think, be handled through the Community Development Department. So that's not the commitment that we're looking at this time.
Well, thank you so much, Lloyd, for bringing this to the HSAC. Hopefully, folks be able to chime in and, well, dial in and participate in July. I know that we, the VA, are definitely going to be at the table. I think this is a good option of being innovative and trying to maximize our housing stock and our resources that we have. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see how this model will fit into our community.
Very good.
So
Thank
more
you.
to come.
Thank you so much.
All right, next up we have our homes fund. So the discussion will be on the potential use of 4.3 million of the home funding. So this is information only, and I think it's going to come from Colin.
It is. Thank you. So as many of you are probably aware by now, the city of Durham will be receiving at some point, we have not received it yet. There are no rules, there's no grant agreement, that there will be $4.3 million in American Recovery Program home funds coming to our continuum. This $4.3 million is earmarked for home-related activities that will be targeted for people experiencing homelessness. And $4.3 million to us in the homeless system is a really, really, really big amount of money. To those in city and county government, it's a drop in a big bucket. However, we do need to be mindful of what do we do with this kind of once in a lifetime big infusion of cash, and how can we make it a transformative experience to really make a lasting impression and lasting impact on our homeless system in Durham. With that said, there have been many people proposing projects that have been brought to all of our attentions and city attention, county attention. And at this point, it makes sense for us to take a step back and work with the HSAC and Policy and Planning Committee to sort of bring in as many people from the community as we can to identify what are our true needs and wants with this money, so that we can bring a recommendation to the HSAC and from the HSAC back to city and county leadership with a clearly articulating what it is that we want and need for our continuum. And if it ends up being more than $4.3 million, we will be in a position to be able to make a request of city and county for additional funds if additional funds are available to do something bigger and better than $4.3 million allows us. There's no guarantee that there is additional money, but the recommendation has been made for us to come up with a plan, a request by November. With that said, we will be pulling some meetings together in July, August, September to kind of flush out what the needs are, prioritize, try and arrive at what it is that is there. And using, for those who are familiar with it, and I see Terry Alaba on my screen, sort of the same type of meetings that we had when we were trying to determine how to use the ESG COVID funds, and sort of getting as many voices as we can at the table to talk through needs. So we really make sure we have a transparent process, that it's very clear, it's open. Anybody who wants to join is free to join. So if anybody on this call has an interest, please email Ruby or I or me so that we can add you to the list when we put the meeting together. The list I'm going to start with is that same group that we started with the ESG COVID funds, because that was a pretty robust, comprehensive list that we worked with to begin discussions. And obviously, I want to make sure we don't exclude anybody who has an interest and knowledge about needs in the community for these funds. So I just kind of wanted to share that with folks of a plan going forward and solicit feedback. If you have people you think should be included, please let me know. Questions, concerns, comments?
This is Tracy again. I have a question. Were there any specifics regarding the regulations around the funds, around what could or could not be used to expend those funds?
Yes, there are restrictions on it. I didn't bring all the details of that, but we'll be talking about what can and can't be done with those funds in our meetings. And we will be posting those on our COC website so we can make sure people are aware of what the eligible expenditure categories are, and also kind of keeping people in the loop of what's happening as we're working through this process.
Okay, all right, thank you.
The rough, to answer your question, Tracy, the rough piece is acquisition or building or renovation of structures. It's really physical
Yeah, that's what I was
infrastructure.
getting at. I was wondering whether or not it was more focused on brick and mortar versus service oriented. That's what I was really trying to
It is, okay, sure.
at.
It's more brick and mortar. It could be used for tenant-based rental assistance. However, the question is that what our need is? And that amount of money is not going to last forever. And it also has a spending timeline. Ricky, you read my mind. The spending is by, I think we've got 4 years to commit and 5 years. Basically by 2029, it all has to be spent out. So if you used a tenant-based rental assistance, it won't last very long. It wouldn't be a permanent thing. So construction may be the better option for a longer term piece, which means there may need to be a request for ongoing operational support.
Well, I want to commend you, Colin, for sort of lessons learned from COVID in terms of planning. And this time there's more lead time to think it through. And I really appreciate your language of looking at things that are transformational. How can Durham invest this money that meets a need, but also is moving us forward? So glad to participate any way I can be of help. So thank you.
I was hoping you would be part of the call, Terry. Thank you. Other questions?
I think you may have answered Ricky's about the deadline. You said 2029.
If I remember correctly, there's a time that we have to get it under, we have to commit the funds, and then the funds have to be spent. It's a 4 and 5 year type thing. It's about 9 years total. And it sort of ends up at that 2029, 2030 timeframe based on my recollections. We'll make sure we post all of the details for everybody.
Sounds good. Well, I'm looking forward to those discussions of how to utilize it in the best way that we can for our community and filling in those gaps. I know that city and county government are used to fiscal years, so I'm just glad they're not saying use it before the end of the fiscal year. The federal government has been getting money thrown at us all year, but we have to use it before October. So I'm just glad that we have some time to kind of work out some strategies and some plans. So thank you. Oh, that's a good question from Chris from Trosa. Colin, will a racial equity tool be applied to this budgeting process?
We definitely want to make sure we're inclusive of everybody. In terms of racial equity, we're looking at what are the needs in the community. So I'm sure, race will be factored into that to some degree, but we're really looking at high level, do we need, for instance, what I'm thinking of in terms of needs, things that have been brought to my attention: day shelter, non-congregate shelter, medical respite programs, permanent supportive housing programs, these types of things. And we do want to make sure that we are inclusive of all voices in the community, not just from a racial lens, but also from an gender and sexual orientation, the LGBT community, the youth. We really want to make sure we sort of look at what are the needs here in the community, and is there a way to prioritize those needs? Is there a way to find a way that we can put these needs all into one project that may be viable or politically palatable to recommend going forward? So yes, we'll be looking at it from as many angles as we can bring to this.
All right. All right. Well, thanks again. Thank you to all of community development for the information shared during this meeting. Lots of great information and to help us continue the goals that we're working on going into this next fiscal year. That brings us to the end of our agenda for today. Let me pause here and see if there are any announcements from anybody on the HSAC committee or from our CLC members, if there are any announcements at this time. All righty. Not hearing none. Our next meeting, we will not have a meeting in July, so we will take a break off. I will see folks in August, and hope you all enjoy your summer, enjoy the break that you will have a little bit. I know folks are still working, but please be safe, have a safe July break, and we will see everybody back in August. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Okay. I heard someone and then I.
Second.
Okay. All right. First and seconded. Thank you all, and we will see you in August. Bye-bye.